Good morning to you. And happy Friday to everyone in the house. Trust we all had a wonderful week. Yeah, Carrie, good morning. Hi, Max. How are you doing today? Sure, we can. We can start. So, as we anticipate the new week, the weekend, let's quickly run through the pairs we talked about yesterday, and let's see how well we're doing. And let's look at a couple of pairs we can take advantage of before we run into the weekend. However, it is important that I state here that it's most likely that we do not take much trade today, especially considering the fact that we are going into the weekend, because there could be some imbalances in the market at this point, as some participants in the market who would actually take advantage of probably a very impulsive move might want to be doing some quick sales, which we'll see as a reflection on the chart as a retracement phase. So, with no much further ado, let us dive into the chart and let's see what is going on today. So, the first pair we'll be talking on today will be on the UK oil, which I don't know if anyone took advantage of this UK oil yesterday. UK oil is already in profit. We saw price come into that buy opportunity zone we identified yesterday, and we saw sharp rejections of that level. As we can see, price is running about pips in profit now. We have like 443, is it 43 or 430 pips? And as we can see, let's go down to a much lower time frame to see how structure played out before the trigger was happened. So we saw price come into that buy opportunity zone area we identified yesterday. Then we saw a quick rejection of that area, which looks more like a reversal pattern, a retest of structure, and price moved to our as expected on the 15 minutes time frame. So it was profitable, and let's see how price is reacting at the moment and what we need to do at this point in time. So what we can see, as far as we can tell, is that price has moved like this, and we saw the impulse move that happened, and then afterwards we saw what looks more like a retracement, a consolidation phase rather, and we are in a scenario where price looks something like this. Then if we look closely into what has been happening, let's scale down to the 15 minutes time frame, for instance, and see what's happening at that consolidation phase. We will notice that we have hold on a second, let's see how that works. Okay, we saw the first test of the structure around here. We saw that bearish move, and then we saw that breakout of that. So allow me to do this at this point. So if we look closely and bring back our candle chart, we saw that we had a rejection of this area. Sorry, okay, we had a rejection of this area. Then price went back into this area again. We saw a sharp rejection of that area, and price came back down. We saw a rejection the third time, and then we saw the final breakout of that area, a retest of structure, and we saw the trend continuation to the upside. So with a breakout of the structure at this point, a breakout and retest of the structure, it's more of a confirmation that we want to be going upside. So with that being said, we want to look for key level around this area that will guide our actions going forward. So going back to our line chart at this point, we will definitely see something like this around this area that we can work with going forward. So if you allow me, permit me to do this, and we have our key level as golden as usual. Then I saw it's like 1.50. Okay, let's put it around this area. So at 11.50, key level at 111.500. So we have something like this. Okay, so this is what we have here right now. So we want to be using that key level as our guide going into the weekend. So with this information that we have right now, then we want to be moving our stop loss to somewhere right below that key level to mitigate against any sudden decline in price action going into the weekend. So if I were you, it's now ripe enough to move our stop loss to somewhere right below that key level, or probably somewhere around 110.50 dollars to lock in some profit. And we anticipate that probably there could be a trend continuation to our take profit target at 120.0. So this is my expectation on this one. So with let me see again. Okay, let's go back to, I think it's more clearer on the lower time frame than on the 1 hour time frame. So we have something like this, and then so remember this blue area is our supply zone that we identified on the weekly time frame yesterday, and we are expecting a possibility where there will be a breakout of that supply zone, a retest of structure, and a trend continuation to the upside. So let's see how price plays out at this point in time. So this is my perspective on the UK oil. Yes, good morning, Khan. We'll look at, okay, US oil. So Khan, we will look at US oil right away. However, it is I think the UK oil and the US oil share the same structure and pattern. Okay, all right. So we're on US oil right now, and then we had an entry point. Okay, we saw that sharp rejection of the buy opportunity zone, and let's see what happened on, let's say, the lower time frame. And then we saw, okay, yes, we saw the first retest of that. Uh, we saw that first retest here. Price came back here, and then we saw the second rejection of that area, and our pending order was triggered yesterday. Can, did you take advantage of that move? Hello, Can, did you take advantage of that move? Okay, so we had price move up. Now we saw this gap. We saw price come down a little bit into our area here. So my advice at this point is that we want to be moving our stop loss to break even at this point on the US oil, as we never can tell what is going to happen. However, going into the New York session, what's going to be our plans going forward? So if we look left, we look at what can be our guide into the New York session. So if we scale down, we bring out our line chart at this point, then we definitely identify this bullish trend line on the 15 minutes time frame, which, if you allow me to bold this for clarity's sake, so we have something like this, and then we'll be looking for this bullish trend line to guide our actions going forward. So if you are taking advantage of that entry on the US oil, then we want to be moving our stop loss to somewhere right below that right below that trend line, after which we look for possibilities of a trend continuation to the upside. So allow me to identify a key level at this point that we can use to guide our action going forward. So I think 110 area appears to be most significant for a key level. So if we have our key level right at 110 area here, so we're expecting that price breaking out of that key level. So one thing we're going to be having here is this: if we have a breakout of that key level and a retest of that key level, then we want to look for structures that support a trend continuation to the upside, after which we add one more position to this trade. So if things work out as expected during the New York session, then definitely we want to be having two trades running on this commodity. So please have this in mind, 110, a key level at this point, bullish trend line running, guiding our actions going forward. We have a breakout of key level, a retest of key level gives us a confirmation, which also shares a confluence with that trend line, looking for structures to buy and follow the trend to the upside. So we want to be adding position at this point on the US oil. I think that is clear on the US oil can. Any questions? Myers, good morning. How are you? Bali, good morning. So moving on to EURUSD. On the EURUSD, what scenario do we have on the EURUSD? We can see that on the EURUSD, we had our entry points 2 or 3 days ago, and price moved. We have three positions running, and price moved over over 100 pips in total, and we saw price came back to our entry point where we got taken out at break even on this trade, and since then price has been finding higher highs. So right now, since the beginning of this, since yesterday night, we've started seeing a consolidation phase around this area, which is also around the supply zone we identified during the weekend. And we're looking at a possibility that probably price will be going up from this area. That is, from this point, price might be going up, or probably we could see a reversal pattern in the form of a double top structure to double top structure around here. That is a reversal pattern, because as you can see, then we look for a breakout of structure, which should be give us a signal, a retest into structure. Then we look for structures that supports a trend continuation to the downside. So what I'm having here is I'm having an entry point, setting opportunity once again at 1.05666, where I'm looking out for a breakdown as a signal. However, if we see a breakout of this 1.060605, we see a breakout of this area, then we want to be looking for a retest to join a potential rally continuation. So this is my perspective on the Euro USD, and let's see how price reacts going into the weekend. But one more thing I would like to say on the Euro USD is that, considering the fact that we are on a Friday and people are actually rounding off their activities for the week on this one, I would probably suggest that we hold on this pair and let's see how this leg is going to move. Is there going to be a retracement into the key level we have here, which also shares a confluence with the bullish trend line, after which we'll be looking for structures that will support a trend continuation to the upside. Or if we have a breakout of the structure, then I would suggest that we just keep our fingers crossed and don't bother taking any trade, because we might be having the potentials of going upward, and we don't know how far that will go. And if you look left and look into higher time frames, you will notice that we are on a long-term bearish momentum, and it will be not advisable to take advantage of any buy opportunity unless we see a retest of that key level, at least for this Friday. So let's see what happens on the Euro USD going forward. Well, Rifts is asking if he has to complete the shoulder, right? If I may ask, which shoulder are you talking about here, please? Are you talking about the double top structure? Hello, Reeves. Well, yes, it's an uptrend, definitely. We already have an impulse leg here, where we can see, which definitely pronounces that it's an uptrend at this point in time. However, we still need to take consideration the fact that this is a long-term bearish momentum if you look left or you go to a daily time frame to see what is happening. However, if you really want to take this uptrend continuation at this point, if you didn't take this move yesterday, then we want to be waiting for the completion of a retracement phase, probably our golden zone area, which is around 50 to 78.6% of the impulse leg, where we will be looking for an opportunity to join the rally to the upside after we see a reversal pattern that supports that trend continuation to the upside. However, with this present structure around this area, is looking more like a reversal pattern, as what we're seeing at this point is a lower high and looking more like a double top structure. Not only if we see a breakout of structure that we want to be looking for a trend continuation of the upside, but I said it's not advisable to take that trend continuation at this point, as we want to look for evident confirmations that will guide our action going forward. And for me at this point in time, the only thing that will allow me to take bullish continuation on this one is when I see price move into either this key level we identify at 1.05200 or this trend line we identified here. Then we look for structures that support a trend continuation to the upside. So that is what I think was going to be happening on this Euro USD going forward. So moving forward to USDCAD. USDCAD didn't play out as expected, as we saw price continue to find lower lows and lower highs. And you can see we had entry points around this area, but price didn't come back to that key level. So this setup is rendered invalid at this point, as we finally saw a breakdown. Though we first of all saw a double bottom structure within that demand zone, then we saw a breakdown during the early hours of today, which is more like prices going to the downside. And if we go to the higher time frame, for instance, on the 4 hour time, remember that we already had an area where we are looking for buying opportunity, and that for those who are taking the advantage of that selling opportunity at this point could probably take their target at this area, 1.27 area, and after which we as buyers, long-term buyers, want to look for opportunities right within this area to take advantage of a trend continuation to the upside. So we've been on a long patience on this one, and let's see what happens before the week runs out. Probably on Monday, then we could see setups that will line up to support the bullish buyers that we've been expecting since the beginning of the week. So that is that on the USD CAD. So moving into AUDUSD, the Aussie dollar. Now, the scenario we have on the Aussie dollar wasn't quite moving as expected, as we saw price came back to our entry point, whereby we closed at break even on this trade. So things did not move accordingly as expected, as we continue to see higher lows and higher highs at this point. So let's, for me right now, price is right within that supply zone that we've been looking for selling opportunity. So those who took the buying opportunity on Tuesday, I guess. So we want to be looking for price to come into that selling opportunity zone, where we look for structures to support a trend continuation to the downside. And if you look closely into what is happening on the daily time frame, you will notice that the selling opportunity zone that was identified shares an important confluence with that bearish trend line we identified on the higher time frame. So let's see how price action reacts in this regard. So on this one, let's hold on and see what happens. And if there is a possibility that we might be having a breakout of that bearish trend line identified on the daily time frame, and we look for price to go further up. Hello, Tito Laga. Yes, good morning to you. We looked at US oil a couple of minutes ago. I don't know if you'll still be around when we are doing the summary on that. So moving on, we have New Zealand USD, which also did not was expected, as we saw price move back into our break-even level, and now we're having the same structure which is similar to that which we saw on the AUD USD. Right now price is within the supply zone, and if you look right very well, we'll notice that this supply zone shares a confluence with that bearish trend line that we identified on a daily time frame. So if you allow me to switch to daily time frame, you can see for yourself that we have a bearish trend line that has been holding since April of this year, and we can see that it has been respecting that trend line in the past, and right now we are right back to that area, and we want to be looking for opportunities right within that supply zone, which also shares a confluence with that bearish trend line to sell the Aussie against the USD. So in that regard, I have actually placed the pending order right at 1.0.63929, where I'm looking for, because if you look closely, we saw this impulse move, we saw a retest of 0.64150 area, and price came back to this area. Then we saw right now we started seeing consolidation phase around that area, and there is a tendency that a double top structure will be formed after a breakdown of structure around this area. Then we look for retest to confirm that we are going down trend. So for me personally, I actually placed the pending order here, and I entered one around here. This one is actually a risk of about 12 pips from this point. So for me personally, I would advise that we wait for price to come down into 0.63926, and if we do have a breakdown of that neckline that we here, then we want to see a retest into that structure to add one more position to this trade. So this is my view on the AUD, the New Zealand USD. So moving on to GBPUSD. On the GBPUSD, we also having the similar scenario. However, we are still profitable on the GBPUSD. We took I shared this opportunity during the course of yesterday's live studio session, where I told you that I had entry points right at 1.23802 and 1.23902, and then when I saw the break above of that of this bullish trend line and a quick retest of that trend line, then I took advantage of a trend continuation to the upside on this one. So presently we have something that looks like this, which looks more like the structure we saw on AUD USD and New Zealand USD, which looks more like a reversal pattern is forming at this point. But I never can tell what is happening, because we still have a bullish trend line that you can see with the green dotted line, where we might be looking forward to a trend continuation to the upside. And if there was a breakdown of that trend line, then a retest will probably give us a signal to do a bearish move. However, at this point, I've placed my stop loss right above this area at 1.24326 on this one, where I'm looking forward to, if price break through my stop loss, then we know that we are calling it a day for this, for the buy on this one. So that is that on GBPUSD. That's our expectation on GBPUSD. And moving on to GBPAUD, we're really struggling on GBPAUD since the beginning of the week, as we saw numerous consolidation phase on the GBPUSD. As we saw, price was triggered around this area. We saw sharp rejection of that trend line multiple times at this point. Though we are profitable in this trade with two positions running, with about a total of, the first one is running up with about 70 pips, and the second one is running with about 44 pips thereabout. So that's a total of 110 pips approximately. So what I'll be advising on this one is that we move our stop loss to closer to the first entry point for both position, and let's see what happens as price action is being monitored. If you look closely, the key level at 1.77600 is still holding price, which we never can tell what could happen before the day runs out. And like I said, if we see a breakdown of that that's this level at 1.76400, then we see a retest. We want to add more position at the confirmation of a trend continuation to the downside at this point. So this is my perspective on GBP AUD. And then moving on to gold. Gold was very, very profitable. I don't know if anyone took advantage of this trade. And what I'm seeing here right now is that though we didn't take profit target at 1,850. We didn't get to that level, but price moved in our favor, respected that trend line. We saw that retest of that structure before price strike through that bearish trend line and moved further up into 1,849.0028 before we start seeing that retracement structures that support the inception of a retracement phase. So personally, I'm out of this bullish opportunity. As soon as I saw this sharp rejection of this area, I pulled out of the GBPUSD and opened another position, opened another pending order for selling opportunity right at I have a pending order right at 1,843.729, and then I have one also at 1,843.080 with a tight take profit target of 1,300 pips at 1830 area. And the reason why that is tight is because we're on Friday. We never can tell when the bulls will come. So I'm looking forward to price coming into that key level identified earlier to take my profit on this one. So if you are not in, you still have an opportunity to be part of this trade and take advantage of that move if it continues to the downside. So this is my perspective on the gold, and let's see what happens. So I'll be deleting this one. We no longer need this, and then we look forward to that bearish move, which might look somewhat like a retracement of that impulse leg that happened during the course of yesterday's trading session. So that is that on XAUUSD. And let's look at what we have here today. I think AUDCAD. Have I talked about AUDCAD today? Okay, no. Okay, AUDCAD. On AUDCAD, this is what I've been monitoring AUDCAD for the past 2 to 3 weeks. When price was around this area. When price was around this area, so I was looking for selling opportunity. So I said if we look at the daily time frame, the first thing we observe is that we have a bearish trend line running on the daily time frame, which could be our guide if we don't see a breakout of that key level for and a retest for a trend continuation to the upside. So if we don't see that, then we want to be looking for opportunities where we want to sell the AUD against the CAD. Now we have a key level right at 0.90500 thereabout, and price finally came back into that key level at this point, which also shares a confluence with the bearish trend line we identified on the daily time frame. So what I'm looking forward to is this. I'm looking forward to a rejection of this key level, a retest of the trend line to signal the trend continuation to the downside. So personally, yesterday I entered this trade yesterday, and we had this move before I move into break even. Right now we came up placed another pending order right at 0.90297 and 0.90177, where I'm looking forward to price breaking down that trend line, doing a rejection of that trend line to send price going to the downside. So going forward, the key level at 0.905 shall be our key level, our yardstick going into the New York session. So I have my stop loss right above that key level, and let's see how price reacts. So it's quite a small stop loss. It's around 26, 27 pips, and then we have a take profit target of 109 pips. And the reason why my take profit target is around this area is simply because of this demand zone. If we look left, we have a structure around this area where it has been a demand zone sometime in the past. So definitely it's an area where probably buyers will gather to take price further up. Because the way things are looking at this point, there is a tendency that we might be having a breakout of that bearish trend line identified on the daily time frame, where we will be seeing price going to the upside. So what I'll be doing here is holding on to this position, and if price move in my direction at this point, as soon as the trade is triggered, I will make sure I move my stop loss close to my entry point so that I don't get stopped out with a big loss as price action is being monitored. So that's that on the AUD card. Then I have something on GBPJPY this morning where I saw that I think we talked about GBPJPY during last week trading session where I was expecting price. Sorry, give me a moment. Let me go to the daily time frame where I was expecting price to come into this buy opportunity zone area so that I can take advantage of a bullish momentum. As you can see, it's obvious that we have an impulse leg we can work with, which lasted since the beginning of March, and then we saw rejections of that level as soon as price got to 1.68 area. We saw lower lows and lower highs. So we were looking for a retracement to culminate within the golden zone area, which is between 50 and 78.6% retracement of the impulse leg, where we'll be looking for an opportunity to buy. So now we have a scenario that looks more like a reversal pattern, as we saw a quick rejection of that buy opportunity zone with 3 engulfing candles. Then we saw a bearish engulfing candle, and then price rejected again at 158 250 area, and we saw price doing to the upside. So one thing first is this, we'll notice is that this is look like more like a double bottom structure. Give me a moment to give you a visual representation of what I mean. So this looks more like a double bottom structure, and then we're looking out for a breakout of that structure, a retest into structure for a signal to the upside. So personally for me at this moment, I'm taking this 130 pips move. If we scale down to a 1 hour time frame, we will see what is happening here. So the GBPJPY is a huge potential for us going into the new week, that is next week. However, I'm looking at if there is an opportunity for me to take advantage of a move um, during this sorry, I have something like this. So I'm looking of taking advantage of this short-term perspective during the sorry, that's not what this is the impulse leg from the buy opportunity zone, and so we have to extend that impulse leg into the future. Then we will be having something like this, and then we have a take profit target around for the meantime I just use 163, which is around 290 pips, and then let's see what happens before the close of the week. So this is what I'm looking out for GBPJPY, and I have a pending order sitting right within that key level identified at 160 area. So that is that on GBPJPY, and the next pair we want to be looking at is EURU. I think we talked about EURUSD already, where I said I'm looking forward to a reversal pattern, a double top structure, as long as we don't have a breakout of this area. So that's that. So on gold, we talked about gold. Yes, we talked about gold. Then on GBPCHF as well, the first thing first we noticed was that on the daily time frame, we are sitting right within a demand zone. And if we look left, we have something like this that has been a demand area since late last year. Price has been rejecting this area for some time, and I'm looking forward to price going up from this area one more time, probably into this area before we see price going down. So we have a 140 pips take profit target on this position, on this one, where I'm looking to take advantage of that buy opportunity if it happens at 1.21536, where I'm looking to take that move to the upside. So this will be like a reversal pattern for me at this point. After this was like we saw rejection of 1.20700, price went up, then came back down, but didn't go as low as the previous touch, and then we saw price moving back to the upside. So I want to see price do a signal in the form of a breakout of that structure, a return to structure for confirmation, where we look for um, opportunities in the form of a reversal pattern where I can add one more positions to this and aim at 1.23 area, which is around 140 pips. So that is that on GBPJPY. Now what I'm looking out for on GBPJPY. Then on New Zealand USD, we have the same structure on New Zealand USD as that which we had on Euro USD, and I explained to you that we have pending orders right at 1.0.606446 and 0.63919, where I'm looking to take advantage of that move to the downside. And why is that move to the downside? Well, the first thing first is that from a long-term perspective, we are bearish. The bearish trend line on the daily time frame confirms this. And secondly, we are within a supply zone, and price is rejecting again that supply zone during this week. So we might be looking forward to a trend continuation to the downside for the New Zealand USD going into the new week. Now we have another scenario on, I think, okay, Euro New Zealand and Euro CHF. So let me talk about Euro CHF first. Yes, on Euro CHF, we've been waiting for this opportunity for a week now, and this is what I have here on Euro CHF. First of all, allow me to delete all this one so that we can have a clearer perspective into what this is all about. So the first and first here is hello, give me a moment. So this is what we had. We took advantage of this move 2 weeks ago. We took advantage of this move 2 weeks ago, and then we saw price come down. We saw this retracement. Then we took advantage of this breakdown last week, I guess. I think it was this week. Yes. I think I shared this on. Give me a moment, please. I shared this 2 days ago, I guess. So we took this move to the downside, and we were waiting for price to come into our buy opportunity zone to take advantage of a trend continuation to the upside. So we want to be looking for a reversal pattern within this buy opportunity zone where we want to be taking advantage of a trend continuation to the upside. So we've waited for too long for this buy opportunity, and then it has finally come to our zone, and then we want to be looking for structures that will support us to join this rally to the upside. So we don't know if this rally will continue right away, or probably we're still going to come down into that bullish trend line where we look for higher lows and higher highs to join the potential rally to the upside. So scaling down to a much lower time frame, we begin to see structures right within that demand zone, that buy opportunity zone that looks more like a reversal pattern. And if you look closely into what is happening, we see that it looks more like a double top bottom structure, as we saw price rejecting 1.02350, and then we saw the second rejection at 1.02558, which is a higher low, and having this area as our neckline now. Give me a moment to identify that neckline. So having this area as our neckline now, then we want to be looking forward to a breakout of that neckline, which is a breakout of structure. Then we want to be looking for a retest of structure to confirm the trend continuation to the upside. So in this regard, I'm having a pending order right at 1.03030, where I'm looking to take advantage of that bullish move right above that key level. So first and first is that once price breaks out of that key level, that will be triggered. Then I want to look for a retest of structure where I want to add more position to this trade to see price go to the upside as expected. So we are having a take profit target at 1.04600, which falls right at the neckline area of where the impulse leg began. if we look closely, we see that we have a neckline area around this area where where I'm looking at to take my target on. So after which we can actually look at what happens from this area to see if we want to continue to the upside or probably we are going back down one more time. So with a take profit target of 1.0 of 150 pips approximately, we are hoping that price move within the boundaries that we have set for it to move at this point. So if you are not in this trade, that is, if you are not part of the bullish move that we made, this bullish move, we had this bullish move, we had this bearish move as well. We made money in both occasions. Now we have another opportunity lined up for us. And in fact, if it triggers and it's moved as expected, then it's going to be an almost win-win situation for us in the last 3 weeks on the EURCHF. So that is my perspective on the EURCHF. And if there are no questions or clarifications, we'll move on to Euro New Zealand, where I'm also looking forward to a bullish momentum on Euro New Zealand. And why is this so? Sincerely speaking, Euro New Zealand, I've been waiting for this in the last 1 month there. But I think before I started this session with you guys, I had this on my hit list, and I've been waiting for that retracement to happen into that trend line I identified on the daily time frame. So this is what we have here on the daily time frame. We have a bullish trend line that has been holding price action since the beginning of April of this year. As we can see, price continue to respect this trend line with higher highs and higher lows, and we saw price breaking through many structures before price moving into around 1.68 for 500 area, and I was expecting since the beginning of the month that price should come back into that trend line where I want to be looking for an opportunity to take advantage of a trend continuation to the upside, and that will only happen, that expectation will only happen if we don't see a breakdown of that structure, a retest. Then probably we want to be going to the downside in the form of a retracement of that impulse move that has happened since the beginning of April. So with that information in mind, to scale down to a much lower time frame in the form of the 2 hours time frame, then we're beginning to see structures that looks more like this. So with the first rejection of that trend line at this area, we saw the first rejection here, price moved in, we saw a sharp rejection at this point, and we have something like this. Then we saw another bullish engulfing candle on the 2 hours time frame, which I'm thinking that we should hold on and see how price will play out. If we are going to be having a signal in the form of a breakout of that area, we look for a retest, then we look for a trend continuation to the upside. So with that being said, we have currently I'm looking forward to, okay, on the 1 hour time frame is what we are looking forward. Okay, we see this bearish move, we saw the first rejection, then price came back to this area. So I want to see a lower high that will give me move to the upside in the form of a signal that a breakout of that structure, then a retest to add one more position to this trade. So this is what I'm looking out for. I don't know if it's going to happen this on Friday today, or probably this will be evolving by Monday. We don't know what will happen, but this is what I'm having right now, and I think it's necessary I just give you a peep into my expectation on that Euro New Zealand, because for me it's not yet matured at this point. So that is that on. I think I've shared GBPUSD, I shared AUDJPY, and okay, UJPY is doing well already. It's already triggered. And it's going as expected. OCR0322, thank you for that compliment. We're out of time already, but I want to quickly run through the pairs and commodities we talked about today before we call it a day. So first and foremost, we talked about the UKOil, and Like I said, we're already profitable on the UKOil. We are presently running with about 450 pips, and allow me to scale down to a much to 15 minutes time frame where we did the much talking on this one today. So on the 15 minutes time frame, like I said, we are running 450 pips in profit, and I advise that we move our stop loss to somewhere below this area, as we identified that a breakout of structure is giving us a confirmation that we are still going. The trend is still very strong to the upside. We saw the breakout of that structure around here. We saw breakout and retest, hereby confirming to us that we still bullish on this one. So we identified a key level at 111.500, where I told you that we are looking to put our stop loss right below that level to mitigate against any sudden push to the downside. So, and I also added that if we have a scenario where price comes back into this key level or this trend line, then we want to look for structure that supports a trend continuation to the upside to add one more position to this trade. So that is my perspective on the UK oil. Then moving on to Euro USD, I said something about reversal structures identified on the Euro USD, where I have entry points right below structure around this area at 1.0565, and then we have something that looks like a double top structure around here. And I said that if we don't have a breakout of that structure, then we should hold on our bearish bias with a take profit target of around 90 pips, which falls at 1.04750 area. And I also said that if we have a breakout of structure, that we should just keep our fingers crossed not to take advantage of any bullish move at this point. And why have I said that we should not take advantage of this bullish move if it happens? Is simply because if we look at the daily time frame, we'll definitely see that we are on a long-term bearish momentum, and it will be very, very risky to do such a thing. Even though we had a breakout of this trend line at this point, we still have the possibility of price moving to the upside into that trend line, major trend line we identified on the daily time frame, which might probably send price crashing to the downside. However, if you scale back down to the 1 hour time frame, I said the only thing that will allow me to continue that bullish momentum is only if I see a retracement of this bullish impulsive leg, where I want to wait for a retracement into the golden zone area, which is within the 50 and 78.6% retracement of the impulse leg, which falls right on that bearish trend line, which might be a retest of that trend line, and also shares a confluence with the key level and the bullish trend line as well, as you can see. Then we want to be looking for structures that will support a trend continuation to the upside. So I'll only take advantage of that if we see that retracement culminate at this area on the Euro USD. So moving on to USDCAD, I think we noticed that USDCAD did not play out as expected. As we saw, we had our entry points at this area. We had 3 entry points right above that key level, and unfortunately price did not go as far as that, as we saw price break down the demand zone, and we saw a retest to the demand zone, and which negated the setup we identified yesterday. So what I want to be looking out for now is this. I want to be if you scale up to the daily time frame, remember we had an analysis on this pair earlier in the week where I was saying that considering the long-term bullish momentum, excuse me, I want to be looking for, considering a long-term bullish momentum on this pair, I want to be looking for a retracement into our golden zone area, which was identified around this area, where I want to be looking for structures that will support a trend continuation to the upside from this area. So since we had a breakdown of that demand zone on the 1 hour time frame, then we should be able to hold on and see price come into that buy opportunity zone area before we start looking for bullish momentum at this point. And if you look closely into what is happening on the 1 hour time frame, we have this trend line running since the beginning of the month, and if price come back into that buy opportunity zone, it will be, we had a breakout of that trend line here. we had a breakout of that trend line at this point. Then if price comes back into that buy opportunity zone, it will align with a retest of that trend line where we can now be looking for structures that will support a trend continuation to the upside. So for me personally, I want to hold on to see how to take advantage of that buy opportunity. And for me, that's a long-term perspective, and we can actually scoop more pips on that. However, if you are a counter trend trader, then we already have a breakdown of the demand zone with a key level right around this area. Then definitely we already have a breakdown here. Then we want to look for a retest around here. Then look for structures that support a trend continuation to the downside. So that is another perspective to this if you want to actually take a trade on the USD card. So moving on, we moved on to AUDUSD. We talked about our expectations on AUDUSD as well, which I made mention that looks more similar to what we had on New Zealand USD, Euro USD, GBPUSD. All these pairs look similar. And one thing that also makes it very, very similar is that if we look at the long-term perspective on these pairs, we see that we are on long-term bearish momentum on this pair. And if you are going for a long-term perspective on this trade, definitely you want to be looking at a bearish momentum at this point. So at the beginning of the week, we had the opportunity where we took advantage of this bullish move and we saw price move as far as this. And we also made mention of the fact that there is a possibility that price will come into that selling opportunity zone we identified around here, which also shares a confluence with the bearish trend line we identified here on the daily time frame. This bearish trend line identified on the daily time frame. And if we look closely into what is happening on the 1 hour time frame and see what has been happening since yesterday, we saw that since price came into 0.0700 area around here, we've been seeing rejection of that area. Price rejected that area. We came back up here again, hereby forming what looks like a double top structure, and we're beginning to see price come down from this area. So let's, for me personally, and looking at this bullish trend line at this point, we want to be looking for structures in such a way that we want to sell the AUD USD. So if you taking a sell at this point is still okay, but to be on the safer side, we want to be looking for a breakdown of that bullish trend line that will give us a sign that that line is no longer being respected by the buyers. As sellers have given us a signal that they want to take over the market at this point. So we will be looking for a confirmation in the form of a retest of that trend line, and we look for structure that supports a trend continuation to the downside so we can open to this trade. So that is that on the AUD USD for now, and then probably we'll be having our take profit target as far as probably a retest of this bearish trend line, temporary bearish trend line that is, you can see on your chart as the dotted red line. That's that on AUD USD. Then moving on to New Zealand USD, like I said, we will have almost the same scenario on New Zealand USD as well. And I told you I had a pending order right at 0.64048, which is already triggered at this point. Then there is another here if you are not yet in that trade at 0.63932 with a tight stop loss of 24 pips or 25 pips. You can send it to 30 pips depending on your account size. Then we want to be looking forward to a bearish move. And the reason why that is because, one, we have a bearish, long-term bearish momentum. And secondly, we are right within the supply zone that has been respected since the beginning of the month. If I allow me to give you a visual representation of what I mean, we saw price broke down that demand zone that has been holding for a week. And then we saw price then we saw price broke down. We saw the first rejection of that supply zone here. Then we saw the second rejection of the supply zone around this area. Then we saw multiple rejection of that supply zone around here before price went down. And then price came back up into that supply zone again one more time. And we saw two rejection in the last 24 hours at this point. So as long as we don't have a break above that structure, that is, we have a break above that structure, then we want to be looking for selling opportunities at this point. So right now I'm having my take profit target at 0.626 for the meantime. It's a Friday. It's no longer, we don't have days for tomorrow. It's a Friday. Then I just want to look at 130 pips to see what happens if it moves in that direction. And then if price moves below this structure here, that is the neckline of that double top structure. I can't call it double top yet because price is still within this area, because there is still a possibility that we could have a breakout of that structure. However, if we do have a breakdown of that structure around this area, then a retest into structure will actually give us another position to add one more trade, making it 3 positions on this pair. So if we do have that during the course of today, then definitely I want to add one more position to this, and let's see how it goes at this point. So that is that on AUDUSD. And moving on to New Zealand USD rather. Moving on to GBPUSD, which I also said have the same similar scenario. However, I'm still running in GBPUSD at this point. Remember, we took this trade yesterday. We had 2 positions running yesterday from this point, and we are running about let's see, 80 pips, like around the 170 pips, because of the, no, I think about 200 pips, because I added another position around this area. Now price is right above that, price is right now here, and we saw the same similar scenario where we saw what we saw on New Zealand USD and AUD USD, and right now we have a lower high. And since this morning, the beginning of the UK session, we've been seeing price doing a consolidation phase around this area, with tendency that price might go down from this juncture in the market. So to safeguard the profit I have made so far, so I have moved my stop loss to 1.24320, which is just quite above my third entry point and right at the neckline if this becomes a double top structure later on in the day. So that is that on GBPUSD. So if we hit stop loss, if we really hit stop loss during the New York session, then we want to be looking forward to a breakdown of this area, which a retest of structure to look for scenarios where we can take advantage of a downtrend momentum on the GBPUSD. So moving on, we talked about GBPAUD as well. Okay, thank you very much for the compliment. So we moved to GBPAUD, and then we saw that we have been struggling on the GBPAUD. So we are profitable, but price action has been caught within a very strong indecision phase in this market at this point, as we can see. Since we got our trade triggered earlier in the week, we had multiple rejection of that key level we had at 1.77600, and you can see the first, second, third rejection of that area. And we have 2 positions running. We had one at 1.77259 and one at 1.76940, though both are profitable right now. But we noticed that it has been respecting that trend line, and also that trend line here and that key level, which still gives me more confidence that we might be still going bearish on this one. So I would advise that we move our stop loss to somewhere around the first entry point at this point, and then let's see how price plays out towards the New York session. However, I also mentioned that if we have a breakdown of the structure here, then a retest at this point and look for structure that supports a trend continuation to the downside, then we can add one more position to make it 3 positions running on this one. So that is that on GBPAUD. Then we talked about gold. I think that was our last okay, we talked about gold, and like I said, on gold we had a take profit target of 1,850 on gold, though price did not move to that level. So we had let's see, we entered here, we had 2 positions, and we had over, I think over 2,500 pips profit on this one yesterday before we started seeing the rejections at this point. So with this rejection at this point, this gives me a clue that probably sellers are actually coming in on this one. So what I did at this point was that to just place a two pending orders right at 1.8 as a 1,843.970 and 1,843.086, where I'm looking forward to price striking through that entry point during the New York session, after which I have a take profit target at $1,830. It's quite a very short one of 1,300 pips thereabout. And the reason why that is because it's a Friday and we never can tell what could happen, because I think there's a possibility that those who took advantage of this bullish momentum will probably want to do a quick sell going into the weekend to take some profits and then probably resume next week with a potential uptrend continuation. So that's why I have a very short take profit target here on the gold. So, and lastly, we talked about the US oil, which can raise the gain today, and I think one other person to raise this. So we let's look at the US oil again one more time, and we'll do a quick recap on what our expectations are on the US oil. So, like I said, on the US, a long-term bullish momentum on the US oil, and we had an entry here yesterday. Like I said if we have rejections of that buy opportunity zone we identified on the 15 minutes time frame, we want to take advantage of that move. Unfortunately for us, we saw the first one, we saw the second one, then we followed this bullish move followed by three engulfing candles, and we saw another rejection of that area which triggered our position, and then we ran into 113 area before we saw that huge gap, and price came back into this level, thereby evolving into a consolidation phase at this point. So to make things easier for us and to guide us going into the New York session, we were able to identify we identified a trend line, a bullish trend line here we can see on the chart with a thick green line, and I said this we should allow this bullish trend line to guide our action going to New York session, as anywhere below that bullish trend line will probably signal that price action is going downward. So in that regard, I advise that we move our stop loss right below that key level, somewhere around 109 or 108.500 area, at least, to mitigate against any risk of a sharp decline or whatever that might happen before the week ends today. And you can see we had a big gap around this area. We never can tell, a big gap can happen again. And I also identified a key level right at 1.09, I think $110. I identify a key level there, and I said that key level shall be our guide to adding one more position to this trade, and that is if we have a breakout of that key level, which we already have right now, and then we have a retest of that key level, which might also share a confluence with that bullish trend line, then we can be looking for opportunity that supports a trend continuation to the upside, after which we can add at a breakout retest of structure, we can add one more position to this trade. So our take profit target still remains at $120, and mind you, our stop loss should be already be moved now so that we can lock in some profit and not end up losing on this one. So that is what we had today on the Friday. It's thank God it's Friday, and it's going to be a very beautiful weekend. I suppose we were profitable this week. At least we have multiple profit targets achieved during this week, and then we have a little stop loss and some break even somewhere, some there, somehow. However, it has been a great week for us, and thank you for being around with me. And I wish you a wonderful weekend at this point. So thank you, and do have a wonderful and great weekend. Goodbye now.